We finally got the first full-length trailer for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and upon watching it, I've already noticed a ton of things inside this trailer that point towards how this new corner of the FNAF timeline relates back to the games, books, and other characters in the FNAF universe. So let's take a full look at the latest FNAF movie's trailer and see how it can fit into the larger FNAF story, and how it might actually change FNAF's lore. The trailer starts with a shot of Mike driving home from somewhere. Probably not his job though, as in the next shot he's on the phone with William Afton himself, asking if the security guard job is still available. As Mike walks inside his house and into his living room, we see his younger sister Abby seeming to listen to the cell phone call, and Mike looking at a notice of delinquency. William says yes, with Michael responding that he'll take anything, implying that he's desperate for a job. William then dives into some sort of exposition talking about the history of the restaurant, saying that it's been abandoned since the 80s, but the owners just can't let it go. We also have Afton taking on the name Steve Ralgan, career counselor in this movie, as an alias, as William Afton is likely a wanted man at this point for, child murder and all that. And now this isn't actually the first time that we've seen Afton use an alias to hide from authorities. As I'm sure you all know, in the Silver Eyes, Afton took on the name Dave Miller when meeting Charlie and her friends. Now, what's interesting about all this exposition is it seems to be a huge deviation from the FNAF story of the games in this movie. The events of this movie, unlike the games, do not seem to be taking place in the 1990s, while the pizzeria is still open, and instead seem to have been updated to modern times, years after the place has been shut down. Mike presumably being brought in to make sure that nobody loots the ruins of the pizzeria, a lot closer to what we actually see in the books. William's alias and the abandoned pizzeria are all taken straight from Silver Eyes, but starring Mike instead of Charlie. Another far more interesting timeline change that could possibly have major lore consequences is Michael doesn't seem to recognize William Afton as his father, which in the games is clearly the opposite. Michael addresses William multiple times, and even gets the job at Freddy's in the first place to stop William. So this could mean one of two things in my opinion. Either A, Mike in the movie just isn't an Afton. This is a brand new character also named Mike, who is acting as the film's security guard. Or B, more excitingly, Mike is suffering from some sort of memory loss, and doesn't actually remember he's an Afton. See where I'm going with this? I know this is a very generic trope, but think about it. We've already seen this hinted at in the movie. The setup for the plot, as we can see in these next shots, with Mike driving to Freddy's, is that he has to bring his kid sister, Abby, to work with him, saying, "I will work while you sleep," with Abby responding, "I understand." The only situation where a sibling would have to watch over his younger sister like this is one where the parents are out of the picture, which would make sense if the parent is William Afton, who went missing in the midst of a police investigation. So from all of this, it certainly seems like there are some strong parallels between the Silver Eyes trilogy and the movie, with Mike playing a similar role in the movie that Charlie did in the books. So what if the big twist at the end of this movie is that Mike was a robot this whole time? It would fit in with the books and explain the timeline inconsistencies and Mike's memory loss. As well as all throughout the FNAF series, Scott Cawthon has flirted with the idea of turning Mike into a robot quite a bit. So I think it's definitely possible in this movie. The only issue here is I just don't know if Blumhouse would go for something that inside baseball in relation to the FNAF lore when adapting FNAF into a film for general audiences. Okay, next we get some shots of Mike and Abby exploring Freddy's. Mike says, "Give me your hand," and they head into the security office. A pretty faithful recreation of the one from FNAF 1. We get another shot of Mike exploring, the wall behind him covered with children's drawings, which kinda reminds me of the sticky note room from Security Breach, followed by the inside of the ventilation shaft with rats scampering through it. And then finally, we actually get to see Mike in the security office, booting up the cameras with the voice of some character we haven't met yet saying, "All you have to do is keep your eyes on the monitor," as the training tape we saw at the beginning of the last trailer plays. Then something pretty unexpected happens. Cut to someone standing in the rain ringing the doorbell of Freddy's. Mike then lets this someone who he doesn't know inside the building as a security guard because he's an idiot, and it turns out to be Vanessa. Officer Vanessa to be specific. However, whether this is the same Vanessa from Security Breach is up for debate, because this Vanessa is listed as Vanessa Monroe in the cast. I know that Vanessa from Security Breach's last name starts with an A, but for simplicity's sake, let's just ignore that for now and say that for all intents and purposes, movie Vanessa is Bunny Girl Vanessa. Cause come on, they look exactly the same. So Vanessa says, "You must be the new security guard," all warm and fuzzy like she's known him for years. And then Mike just hardcore rejects her saying, "Can I help you, officer?" Then Vanessa starts talking about the animatronics and says, "Have you met them yet?" Cutting to a children's drawing of all the animatronics. Mike says, "Met who?" as we are given more shots of him investigating said animatronics. Next we get to see Mike actually on the job, sitting down with a pair of headphones in front of the monitors. Not too long after that, Mike falls asleep. "Come on, Mikey, what are you doing?" But his nap doesn't seem to last for too long because he's suddenly awoken by the power coming on all throughout Freddy's. The lights boot up, music blares through the speakers, and the arcade and prize counter come to life, illuminating all the machines in FNAF merch. Then we get to see the animatronics themselves on show stage, illuminated by colored lights and dancing on the stage. And looking at the animatronics here, these do seem to be the actual puppets rather than the CGI. And I do again appreciate that they appear to be making an actual effort to limit the CGI in this movie. Next shot is of Michael, hands over his ears, cutting the power, causing sparks to fly from the animatronics as they shut down. Mike clicks through the security cameras, presumably trying to see who was the cause of the power suddenly coming on, and then cut to a shot of Foxy, while Vanessa plays MatPat explaining the lore, saying in the 80s kids went missing. Then the next shot is of a body being dragged off screen, possibly one of the other security guards we saw in the last trailer. A shot of Vanessa's face saying, "Police searched Freddy's from top to bottom and never found them." Then we get a shot of Abby walking up to the show stage, discovering Freddy, of course implying that she could become the next kid to go missing. And all of this brings us to our second theory of the video, because at least from the context of this trailer, I find Vanessa's motivations a little weird. I mean, why would she just show up at Freddy's for no reason and start disclosing the history of it to Mike? It just doesn't make sense, unless you take into account who Vanessa has been all throughout the series. William Afton's henchman. And we can also connect this narrative back to the books as well. If we go under the assumption that Vanessa is some sort of rebuilt version of Elizabeth Afton, as I talked about in my Vanessa is Baby deep dive video, which I'll link in the iCard, this relationship is present in the books as well, with Baby being Afton's errand girl who takes care of him in the fourth closet. And Eleanor in the Fazbear Frights series is a stand-in for Baby, who fulfills a very similar relationship. In all of these instances, Vanessa or Baby is shown to be taking care of and doing William's bidding, and is also either hinted at or confirmed to be a robot. So this would add a whole nother layer to this if this were the case in the movie as well. And I would not be surprised at all if we were seeing that same relationship play out in the movies, with Vanessa literally being William's daughter or just the two being in cahoots. But I have a strong feeling that we are going to see it revealed that Afton sent Vanessa to keep an eye on Mike. And it would be an absolutely crazy twist if at the end of the movie it was revealed that all these characters were robots. And would definitely seem like a twist that would be put in a horror movie about robots if they really wanted to mess with the audience. But again, I'm still not sure if the movie would go with something that crazy with the lore right off the bat. But I think the parallels and evidence in the games and books definitely line up. So now here's where we get another unexpected plot point. After a quick exterior shot of Freddy's, we see 4 people holding up baseball bats and crowbars, seeming to be making an attempt to break into Freddy's. And it seems that these people's raid attempt on the pizzeria did not go very well, as next we can see a shadow of Bonnie killing someone in the janitor's closet before cutting back to the outside, showing the guy Bonnie's killing grabbing the glass window of the closet. And it turns out that this character is Hank, the guy who in a previous video I theorized was Henry, based on his resemblance to the character and the fact that Hank is usually short for Henry. But it definitely seems like that theory is out the window now. I guess he's just some random character who made the mistake of breaking into Freddy's and got absolutely cooked by Bonnie. Man, I don't even know why this place needs its own security guard. The animatronics seem to be doing a pretty decent job on their own keeping people out. Now we get some more exposition about the missing children. Michael says, "There are ghost kids possessing giant robots? Thanks for the heads up." Well, we are shown more of what I've speculated to be a dream sequence, where Mike sees the spirits of the kids, possibly when he falls asleep in his office. First, we are shown a drawing of Bonnie scratched in the dirt, then a shot of Mike looking at the kid who becomes Foxy, who's wearing a fake hook on his hand. The trailer quickly cuts to the actual Foxy to make the connection, before cutting back to Mike and Vanessa. Mike sarcastically says thanks for the heads up, and Vanessa says technically they're animatronics because she's a smug nerd, and finally we get a look at the new animatronic designs. Foxy flashes on for exactly a frame, standing eerily in the darkness, and his design is very faithful to the game. However, I do wish they would have just taken some artistic liberty in designing the damage on his suit, because that just realistically isn't how withering on his torso would look, and it kind of breaks the immersion for me. Next we get to see some more of Abby's encounters with the robots. Or, sorry Vanessa, I mean animatronics. Abby walks into the pizzeria, followed by a shot of Bonnie looking at her. And it definitely does look like the red eyes in the characters have been toned down a lot after the backlash from fans. I personally didn't care all that much, but I know a lot of people, mostly on Twitter, really weren't happy with those red eyes. And again, with the shot of Abby in front of the children's drawings, I really can't help but think of the sticky note room from Security Breach. It makes me wonder if Abby, being Mike's little sister and all, will eventually end up playing a bigger role in the franchise, especially considering how Abby is a perfect anagram for baby, and Mike's sister does become baby in the games. One does have to wonder whether this movie will be a happy ending for her or not, and the next line does reinforce that a little bit, with Vanessa saying they want to make her like them, introducing a pretty interesting plot into this movie where Mike and Vanessa have to save Abby from the robots, as we get a shot of Abby's face followed by Foxy staring at her menacingly. Next we get a shot of Mike screaming for Abby, a close-up on Chica's cupcake as its eyes lit up, seeming to imply that Abby's being hunted by the robots now. Now this next scene is something I really want to mention because it's very interesting. It looks like Mike is running through some sort of museum, and we know that he is not at Freddy's because, well, he isn't wearing his security guard uniform. In the area that he's in, we can see many other people and paintings on the walls. Now I think that this is actually a shot from one of Mike's old security jobs. A few shots later we can see Mike appearing to fight someone in this fountain here, possibly the reason he got fired from this job in the first place, alongside who we can presume is a fellow security guard wearing the same clothes Mike was in the scene of him running. So I think that Mike was originally security for this museum. And this scene is him chasing the likely museum robber who we see him apprehend in these shots. Next we can see Abby standing on a chair looking into Freddy's mouth, and seeing a human hand reach out of the robot, which is likely some sort of hallucination, but it scares her enough to cause her to fall off the chair. We then hear Mike ask Vanessa how to stop the animatronics. Vanessa says it's too late, before we are shown Freddy turning towards Mike, who looks like he's about ready to start fighting the robots. Now this next scene is possibly the best part of the entire trailer. William Afton can be heard humming the Torador March, the tune that's been playing throughout the entire trailer, as we see a blurry image of Springtrap walking towards Mike. Then we see a reaction shot from Mike and Abby attempting to hide. Mike tells Abby to run, and then we get a shot of a car pulling away, with a little boy looking out the back, and Mike standing behind the car looking horrified. This also seems to be from his dream, and many online have speculated that this could be Mike's little brother, based on his resemblance to the crying child, being taken away from him at a very young age, possibly by William Afton if the family split apart like we have guessed. Next we get another good look at Bonnie and Chica over the cameras, Chica noticeably missing her cupcake, followed by a shot of someone's dead body in what looks like Mike's house. Then we get to see Vanessa in the hospital, which is very weird and out of context. I'd assume she ends up here because she is attacked by one of the animatronics or something. And if my theories are correct, this could possibly be when Mike learns that Vanessa is actually a robot. Lastly, we get a shot of Mike crawling out of the vent, so it definitely seems like there's going to be some tense vent sequences in this movie, which is always a good thing. Then the big reveal. Afton is Springtrap holding a knife. I love his design here. It's perfectly creepy, and the glowing white eyes are awesome. I have to say, I think Springtrap might end up stealing the show here. And with this Springtrap scene, we can draw yet another conclusion to the books, as this is exactly what Afton did in the Silver Eyes. Take on a fake name, come to the pizzeria, put on the Springtrap suit, and then eventually end up dying to it. So if my predictions are correct, this movie will end with the birth of Springtrap and Baby. And then finally we can see Mike running away from Springtrap, banging on the door and yelling before we get a title card. Then there's one last shot at the very end with YouTuber Corey Kenshin driving a taxi and saying, "Where to?" before looking in the back of the car and seeing the head of Golden Freddy next to Abby. Now I actually think that this is Mike instead of the Golden Freddy head here, and there are several several reasons why. First off, this appears to be the same mask that was used in the Freddy saw trap thing that Mike gets put in, and we actually saw that same Freddy saw trap right before we saw this scene, almost as if the trailer is implying that this is the result of that trap. And finally, on the poster for the movie, it shows Abby holding hands with Golden Freddy, just like she does with Mike in the movie. So that was the trailer, and honestly, this movie looks great. I have very few complaints with what I've seen so far, and I could not be more excited to go see the movie in October. I just hope it comes out with delivering a great mystery, great story, and expands on the lore of FNAF in an actually interesting way. That was the video. Bit of a longer one, eh? I'm gonna do a 8-hour critical analysis of Garten of Banban next. I'm sure that'll be a great video. You guys better keep your eyes out for that one. Yeah, honestly though, FNAF movie looks great. I'm gonna watch it. So if you did like this video, and I think I actually had some pretty good theories in this one, so I mean, why would you not? Then why don't you hit that like button, subscribe button to boost the engagement and watch time, and all that other stuff that I pretend not to care about. And goodbye. I'll see you in the next one.